So we're exploring some of the different warbands in Godtear: Tabletop Ascension, Glory, Tabletop Immortality. And this is a very interesting and unique skirmish-based game. I've been pushing up some vlogs, some Tactica to the Godtear playlist here. And one of the things that I enjoy about this game, being a fast play, miniature-based skirmish game, the missions are very dynamic. That helps. The miniatures and the factions and the models, really, really fantastic. That's a big plus. A lot of diversity and fun type of champions to play that you don't really see in other fantasy-based games. So that's an amazing plus. But the other thing that's interesting is there are multiple ways to win. Killing models, it is a miniature-based game, skirmish game, is important. Removing player models, cutting down on dice pools, all that standard kind of war game Tactica 101 is important. But Godtear has been built from the ground up that is not the only way to win. So what you also see is synergy and buffs, where certain champions and warbands can interact on the same team, boost your abilities, or against your opponent, lower their abilities. There's ways to manipulate the objectives, literally the God tiers, the salty pile of tiers that you want to capture, to move them, to change them, to create them. It's a very, very fluid and dynamic battlefield. But then there are these interesting, unique abilities where you have the core rules of the game. And these are like the laws of the game. But you have certain warbands and certain players in the game that can tweak or change that one fundamental scoring rule. And that creates a lot of interesting Tactica, really unique opportunities that you can use as a linchpin, as kind of a foundation to some Tactica and to some strategy. When combined with synergy and other effects, makes for a very, very interesting game. So with that introduction, Helena is part of the blue team. And what's interesting about her ability that really sets her apart, you open the box up and Godtear comes with a champion that looks fantastic, some followers / minions. These could be in groups of 2 or 3 for larger, or a bunch of smaller followers. Fantastic sculpts, amazing dynamic poses, and then like a cool totem, like this cool banner. And the banners are important because literally you plant your banner, you stake your claim for the God tiers, and you score some points. So you're putting these markers, you're putting these banners down on the table, and your opponent is trying to kick them over and crush them. You open up Helena, and you're like, where's the banner? I mean, it's a cool model, cool pose, and the followers look awesome. Where's the banner? She's very interesting because her whole primary ability is this idea of a banner bearer. And I'm going to read from the card here. Helena cannot make a claim action. That means planting a banner in Godtear. You get points when you plant, and then at the end of the round, you get bonus points. So, yes, you can go out and kill followers, you can kill champions, but staking the claim to the tiers has to be a fundamental strategy. So we see here, she cannot make a claim action. During the end phase, if she's not knocked out, that's key because then we get into some combos, Helena counts as a banner for the purpose of gaining steps on the battle ladder. So essentially, she's a living banner. She's not in place, but then at the end of the round, when you see and calculate points, now she has to be on the tiers. If she's on that pile of tiers as a champion, she claims it, she counts it. And she gets the bonus as being part of the blue team for that. That's interesting because what that means is normally you plant a banner as your champion, and then you have to kind of be careful of where you maneuver and what you do, because your opponent will crush the banner, remove it with their abilities or their turns. Or they might have a special ability where they can manipulate tiers or manipulate banners and move it. The fact that she is a living banner and only activates at the end, that kind of breaks the rules. That like takes the laws of Godtear and allows her to manipulate that and do that. That is really, really potent. So how I see her combined with the peasant warriors that back her, their stats are not that great, but she buffs them. as they're closer together, they gain abilities, attack abilities and damage abilities. So you're going to always want to operate them in a close group, close together. She makes, like, combined with them, and her ability to heal, to prevent from being knocked out, and her ability to kind of blast with this holy bolt, kind of a range attack, she makes a great objective camper that's kind of hard to dislodge from there. That's almost like a free banner at the end of every single turn. That also makes it interesting where you might have to crush banners and then suddenly rush on. She could crush a banner, rush on, and at the end of the turn, rush onto a pile of tears and claim it. Now, this is the economy too, kind of one of her hidden abilities. So right away, the fact that she operates out of the normal game mechanics means your opponent is going to have to come up with a new flow strategy to potentially deal with her. The other thing that's interesting is planting a banner takes an action. You have action points, essentially, in Godtear. You do this, you do this, you do this. Sometimes you get a bonus action, but for the most part, you take 2. Planting a banner, claim, takes an action. The fact that I don't have to do that means, well, I essentially have an extra action every single turn, because every turn your champion is going to try to essentially plant banners. I don't have to do that. I mean, they're going to attack, they're going to move, they're going to do other things. That's huge too. That's really big also, because it adds a lot more tactical flexibility, where essentially we have what's called bonus actions in Godtear, where you get to do this every turn no matter what. Or if you do this a turn, you get to take a bonus action. You get to do this in addition. Her ability with the banner, of being the banner at the end, that's like a free bonus action every turn, because I never have to plant. That is really, really interesting. And especially as the game moves into the end phases, she becomes more powerful, right? At the beginning of the game, let's say you're playing 3 war bands. You got 3 champions. You've got the war bands. You start taking losses. Maybe you bring back some followers. Maybe you recruit. You get knocked out, you stand back up. When you get to the mid and end game pieces, you've lost followers, your opponent's lost followers, you've taken some wounds, you have less table coverage, even with 3 warbands, less tabletop coverage for mission objectives, Godtears. You really don't want to waste those resources recruiting. You really don't want to waste those resources because you can't be everywhere, so your actions need to be hyper-focused. The fact that she kind of gets this hidden bonus action, because I don't have to claim every single turn, that gets infinitely more powerful as the game moves on. So at first glance, I mean, she's got some attacks, okay armor, okay life, okay agility, okay stats. Followers are a little bit on the weaker side, but they are the blue team. But certainly nothing bad, nothing terabad. But once you look and you see this idea of a living banner, once you see the abilities that she has with that as being a great objective camper, blasting at range, using the followers to essentially castle up around that, and it's done out of turn, that's really, really interesting. And it kind of breaks the physics of the Godtear rule set. And I love warbands that do that, because that means your opponent has to adapt outside of the kind of base laws of the game. And yes, absolutely, they could successfully do that. And there's many ways to do that, many options in Godtear. But for me to have that option, I like that. So champions like her, a lot of diversity, a lot of interesting tactica. And of course, as always, the synergy and the interaction of the different warbands and Godtear that you can play, because there are no one faction, that take things to an even higher and more interesting level.